Hemshech Ayin Beis, Volume 1, we're up to chapter 98, middle of the Maimer of Avram Zokon, this week's Maimer, 100 years ago, so we're living with the times. It's exactly 100 years ago. The page is Kuf Pei Ches 188. Okay. This definitely needs a good summary, so let me tell you where we're at. We're explaining two words from Rabbeinu Shem Tov cited by the Pardes. The words are machshavos hanelamas. That's spheres, the spheres, from the second interpretation, telling a story. The first interpretation was number. Now the second interpretation, telling a story, is sipur. So the Rabbeinu Shem Tov in the Pardes of the Ramak says that spheres reveal the hidden thoughts, which means they tell the inside story.
Rabbeinu Shem Tov is the Ramak?
No, he's cited by the Ramak. Cited, quoted. Okay. So, first, in the previous Maimer, we discussed how a keli reveals without a container, you don't know. Very simply put, for example, you may have chesed inside your heart. You don't have a container where it manifests. It's a concealed and a unrealized or ungrounded expression, or non-expression. So Kalim revealed the Eres. That was the first statement. So in Atzilus, Kalim revealed the Eres. But the point here is machshavos nalamas. It doesn't just reveal the energy within Atzilus, it also reveals that which is above and beyond Atzilus, which is really the essence of what Atzilus is. To let us know God. To allow us to have the experience of a divine experience on our terms. God could have created the universe without anything, without any interfaces. The interface of Atzilus is essentially like a model, a divine model of existence. It's a divine model of mehus and midas, how our minds can relate to God and our feelings can relate to God. We say daat, we should know God. How could you know God? God is not knowable, but God manifested in chokhmah bina das of Atzilus. How could you have v'ahavtas Hashem elokecha? How could you love God? God is invisible. You can love something that's tangible, because God manifested in chesed, gvura, teferes, netzach, hod, yesod of Atzilus. So basically, we can emulate, because we have this middle place with divine, but it's structure as we know. So that's Eres Ukelim. But that reveals a story of how things are beyond Atzilus. Meaning it's revealing who put Atzilus into place, and that's the real issue that concerns him in this Maimer by Avram Zokon. What means machshavos nalamas? Okay, so basically Atzilus reveals to us that deeper reality. That was chapter Tzadik Hey, 95. Then Tzadik Vov, Ayin Beis, he goes further, that it reveals higher than Atzilus. That's what we're learning now. Machshavos nalamas. To explain this, the Rebbe Rashab went into a whole discussion as an example. We're always using an example, as I explained last time. Example means actually just the same level, manifest, nishtalshlu mehen. Our faculties express God's faculties, so to speak, the faculties of Atzilus. So, in this past chapter, this chapter Tzadik Vov, he begins to discuss a thing in koach. So I'm going to review it, but I'm also going to add, because I looked at the source. The source is an Imre Bina, is a critical source for this. He actually cites it at the end. That was the hint that I realized. And when you look at Imre Bina, the whole thing is far, far clearer. Because a lot of this is a summary of Imre Bina. Even Imre Bina is a sefer from the Mitler Rebbe. It basically has three sharim. It has a Pesach Hashar, has a Shara Krishma, Shara Tzitzis, and Shara Tfilm. The Tzemach said the Mitler Rebbe was the only Rebbe that actually published Sefirot in his lifetime. Besides, the Alter Rebbe was Tanya. But the Mitler Rebbe published almost across the board on every topic, on every Yom Tov and on every subject. So you have the Mitler Rebbe. The Mitler Rebbe was a real publisher, essentially. Wrote Sefirot. The Alter Rebbe said Maimorim that became Likutei Torah, besides Tanya, that he wrote. All the Rabbeim said Maimorim that the Mitler Rebbe actually composed Sefirot himself. He wrote it himself, word for word. So Imre Bina is on primarily Krishma, Tzitzis, and Film. There's, for example, Derech Chaim is on Tshuva. There's a Shari Tshuva that's also on Tefillah and Tshuva. Shari Eira is on Chanukah and Purim, Chanukah and Purim. You have Derech Teres Reish is on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and says to make Tshuva. He covers it all. What else do we have from him? We have Pekei Chivrim. We have a bunch of others. What did I miss? Shari Yichud, of course. Shari Yichud is on Shara Amunah is on Pesach, and Shari Yichud is on Amunah. And then there's more. There's Teres Chaim. That's already Maimorim that the Mitler Rebbe wrote. and delivered. That's Teres Chaim. But the rest is, there's also Pirush Hamilas on Tefillah, and Siddur on Tefillah. I mean, he covered really the gamut. He wrote them. He wrote it like a sefer, for a printed, published sefer. Not necessarily. He may have said it elsewhere, but no. The Mittler Rebbe didn't say Imre Bina. Ideas are all from Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe, elaborated on. It's structured like a sefer. He wrote it for a book, not to be delivered on Shabbos. Then there's Mamorim Admurim Tzoy, of course, which is all the Mamorim, the rest of it, either that he wrote or not. But Imre Bina is considered to be one of the deepest for him. Now, Rebbe Rashab said that his hair fell out from learning Imre Bina. He literally said those words. There's another story with Imre Bina, since he's already mentioned it. When the Rebbe Rashab was learning Imre Bina, a lot of Ayin Beis is Imre Bina. He doesn't always mention it, but Imre Bina is extremely complex. And Ayin Beis, in a way, is as complex, but Ayin Beis explains it more. Imre Bina, you can go for 5 pages, and then you don't know where you are. It's like, and then finally you hear a word, and then you realize he's explaining it in a different way. It's like a flow of consciousness that you've never seen. It's unbelievable. The flow of consciousness is very hard to really understand. Here, if you go slowly and you learn it again and again, you can get it. There, I don't know. It's just like a brain opens up and it just flows.
You should not medayek in every word.
I never heard that. Let's start first being medayek, and then we can come to. First, you have to be medayek in every word before you come to not being medayek. If you know what I mean. Because based on that, you might as well not be medayek in any word. What do you mean by not being medayek? How could you?
Maybe because he said so many things.
No, but how do you have to learn the words? I would. What I suggest would be learn it. If you want to learn it, try to understand it all, and then what you don't. Anyway, Imre Bina, I'll tell you one more story, which is with who is it? With the Yesod Ber.
Yes, he asked one of his cousins to touch him to explain to him.
He sent a shliach to go to Maskil Chassidus in Krimenchuk. What was his name? Yesod Ber, I think it was.
Like Geshem Ber Par?
No, it wasn't Geshem Ber Par. It was Yesod Ber, I think Yesod Dave or something. So he didn't respond. So the Rebbe Rashab said to Discourse, tell him that I don't know. So he said, "Et eis kumen onmir." He'll figure it out himself without me. He could figure it out without me. So the Rebbe Rashab says, I didn't ask him pshat because I wanted to know pshat. I wanted to know how you can understand this with seichel anushi. How a human mind could understand it. That was okay. That's what he wanted to ask him. He wasn't asking him what it means. Anyway, so Imre Bina is a key thing here. It's actually Imre Bina that the Rebbe cites, but in other contexts. So let me tell you what it says in Imre Bina, and then, I'll say both together. The bottom line is to give an example to understand what means machshavos nalamis, concealed thoughts of God. The Rebbe Rashab takes it back to understanding ourselves. So basically, there are 3, or let's say 4 levels. The faculties that we have, our revealed faculties, testify to the fact that there has to be stages before they became revealed. They didn't just pop out of nowhere. So he spells out the stages like this. Everything starts from etzem hanefesh. That's the core soul. Core soul is pshitis lagamri, meaning completely shapeless, formless, does not have any. It carries within it. They say sometimes nesek koachos. It contains within it the power of faculties. That in turn becomes koachos atzmim. These are how are the faculties contained in the etzem hanefesh? This is what he calls yechida. This is yechida. It's not this etzem of soul, core soul. It's already one of the 5 names. The first one, yechida. The core faculties are similar to the core soul. They're one step below it, technically, but they're similar, meaning that they're atzmim. You can't even call them a source. You can't call them anything in any type of definition. All you can say is that they are like archetypes. Hiyulim, koachos atzmim hiyulim is the word he used. That in turn produces what we call the mekayre hakoachos, the root of the source of the faculties. This already is called koachos nalamim. So this is nalamim. You see the word nalamim, machshavos nalamis. So we're talking now, already it's concealed. So it's not an actually revealed faculty, but you can't negate it from the concept, from a structure of faculty. It's already the beginning of faculty. In intellect it would be called the koach hamaskil. It's the force, the power that conceives ideas. So in the soul, you can't say it's a power that conceives ideas. In the soul, you can say there's some energy there that will become the koach hamaskil. Then there's the koach hamaskil. And then comes the 4th and revealed level, which is what we experience. So these are the 4 levels. Now, this is from Imre Bina. And Imre Bina, he gives the word, but he says, Nikra Hamshachan Nalamas, that's Imre Bina. So Imre Bina calls level 3 Hamshachan Nalamas, which means a hidden transmission. It means it's in transmission. Think of it like an energy has transmitted, but the energy is still a step before being revealed. So it's some manifestation there. Okay.
That's not that.
Huh? No, Hamshachan Nalamas is that. In Asag, Hamshachan Nalamas is Hamshach. It's all the koachs. Like Hamshachan Nalamas. Basically, if you say like koachs Nalamim would be Hamshachan Nalamas, Hasag Nalam would be Chabad Nalamas, so to speak.
That's not
okay.
That's me.
Of course, I just said it's the third level. Yeah. Now, in the Imre Bina's terms, before we go to the next chapter, which is the chapter where we learned previously, is like this. Basically, I actually wrote it up once. If anyone wants it more in detail, I wrote it up in English. Basically, besides Etzem, we won't talk about Etzem now. We're talking about the 3 levels, really. Essentially, he calls it. We'll call it the unconscious, and the conscious. Those are the 3 levels. So the unconscious would be the koachs atzmim. The unconscious would be the koachs nalamim, that's concealed, and the gluyim would be conscious. Now, he gives an example for this. This you may have learned of oil and wine. So rosin is the secrets of Torah. Lechem is nigla de Torah. That's conscious. You eat it revealed. Wine already opens up new doors. You drink wine, it opens something. But it's called rosin darais, the secrets of Torah. That's the unconscious. And shemen is rosin diraz, the secrets of the secrets. That's the etzem. So the question, of course, is the whole point of all this is the interface. Because you want to have a flow, like he said in the previous chapters, that makes sense. You don't want to have a jump, because God wants us to connect. A jump is a different type of avodah. Here we're talking how do you integrate. So this is the process of integration. If it jumped from step, what I call now step 1 to step 3, or it's step 2 to step 4, however, I'm not talking about etzem nefesh now. If it jumped from the atzmim, from the core faculties, which is oil, straight to bread, to conscious, you'd be lacking an interface element. So you need the in-between plays, the nelamim. They're like a bridge. So they're all bridges at the end of the day. So here's where he brings there, this is what the Ayin Beis, it just makes it a little easier to relate to. He brings there the Tful Yom. The Gemara machlekes between two machlekes. I mean, one machlekes that has 2 applications to it. That if there's a shemen sof al gabe yayin, and there's oil that's floating on top of wine. Remember, oil floats is higher. It floats over water and wine. So, and the wine becomes tamei, impure. Does it impurify the oil? There's 2 different opinions. One says it's like detached, so it doesn't. And one says it's like attached, and it does. This also applies to Shabbos. The same question. Shabbos, you need, kirat and hanach. You need to be able to remove something from somewhere and then put it down. That's what requires. You can't. A malach havara of a Shabbos requires. It's not just picking up. It's also putting it down. It's not just putting it down. It has to pick up. So the question is: are you picking up the oil from the wine? So if it's connected, you are. If it's not, you're not. It's only floating. It's above it. It's never had a resting place, so to speak, because it's only floating. So the Rebbe Rashab, the Mittler Rebbe asked a very practical question. He said, "How could there be such a machlekes? It's mitzias. You check it out. What do you mean, floating and out? What is this? The psak is like the rabbanon that it's connected. I think
It is.
that's the halacha. But the 2 opinions are. So he says the 2 opinions you can only understand with ruchnis, because what else? And he says that's the difference. Is the unconscious connected to? And he also asked another question. What are they arguing? I mean, is shemen a completely different entity or not? She says there's 2 levels in shemen. That's his basic chiddush there. There's a level that never is attached, and there's a level that is attached. And the question is, which one is the priority, so to speak? Yeah, correct. Exactly. So the level that's attached is the shemen that's closer to the unconscious. In other words, and this level that's not attached is the shemen that's like remains always atzmim, so to speak. Yeah. It's a very interesting discussion there.
See that manifest in halacha that then the top part of the shemen would not be metame?
No, because the top part is already connected to the lower part. So you can't separate that. It's not the top part of the shemen. It's a different dimension of the shemen. You can't say the top part. The shemen itself is for sure one entity. If the lower part is tamei, the higher part is tamei. There's no way around that. That's already.
So then what are you talking?
He's not talking halacha. He's talking conceptually. What is their conceptual argument? What's their conceptual argument? Is shemen? In other words, the conceptual argument is a psychological one. Is the unconscious connected to the conscious or not? To the unconscious. Anyway, I'm just bringing that. He doesn't cite that here, but it just gives you that's the context there. So now he calls, the next thing he calls is hasagan alamas. And he brings like this. I can't say this is not the words of the Imre Bina, but the Imre Bina is clearly driving all this. So here's what he says. That hasagan alamas, I'm talking now chapter 97, reviewing it. Hasagan alamas means a concealed thought. And there, by the way, he elaborates at length, so it's very clear what he means with it. Everything is there. Yeah. But here's what he says. But there's a key thing that I don't know, for some reason I had oversight. But I'll explain in a moment. So now he explains it in the intellectual process. And the intellectual process goes like this: the conscious mind is a revelation, and therefore is subject to gradations. Seichel, you grow in seichel. One day you're smarter, you can grow, become smarter and smarter. You grow in wisdom, and also levels of wise people. A smaller wise person, a greater wise person, and this can be taught. You begin as a beginner, you become an expert, etc., etc. In that itself, he also said in Chachma there's these two dimensions: a scholar understanding the details of an idea, understanding the theory of the idea. That was the parentheses. It's all, by the way, in Imre Bina. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is in Imre Bina. This may not be. No, I correct myself. I think it's not. But that's all not the etzem hakoach hachachma. So he calls this category called a person who's a chacham be'etzem koach chachmaseh. It's a very important expression. Chacham be'etzem koach chachmaseh. I also found, by the way, explanation of this chapter by the Frierdiker Rebbe in Tofresh Pei Beis, Tofshin Pei Dal, and Tofshin Tes. He explains it also, so you can learn there. You see more details.
I think much further, all the way almost towards the
He
end.
may. I don't recall.
Where is that phrase in here? What's the first?
It's in the middle of the page.
What's the first word on the line?
Let's see. The first one is v'hagdola. It's like 2/3 way down. At the end of the line. So etzem koach hachachma is not even the theory. Now you're already talking hasagan alamas. That's already the level that is concealed. So we're talking unconscious, basically. So he says this is not subject to the gradations and to the quantitative shifts. A person who has this is qualitatively different and cannot train someone. He gets it. He just gets something on a different level. And as such, why can't he explain it to someone else? Because he himself doesn't have it in hasaga. It's just like, he compares it, it's similar to seeing it. He doesn't call it seeing, he says, kamoi, man. So it's like you see something. It's like the experience of actually a sense of truth in something, which, either you saw it or you didn't see it. So he doesn't. So it can't be megal. That's why he can't explain it to someone in words. Because dibur, expression and explanation and training, it only comes to something that is nitfis in a clay, in a container. But this hasaga is higher than containers. And it's close to Uriah, and even closer he says, that line really got me. It's like as if we know what sichlim nevdalim are. But I guess if you know what it is, it says, okay, it's closer to sichlim nevdalim. But fine. So this. Every seichel is like this. So not just that he has his own way of understanding things, meaning his ideas are different. Even a seichel that you and I, that everyone else learns, when he learns it, he sees something else. It's usually used on malachim. It could be. I don't remember. I have to look at the makkah where it is. Seichel nedalim usually mean nivdal, that they don't have the limits of guf. Okay? So they're like it's like pure seichel. It's like a seichel that has the etzem. It could be. If I recall, it's malachim usually, but I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
Yeah, I know it does a malachim. That's why I'm saying.
Yeah, I have to look where the first place it says it. I'm not sure. It's a kabbalistic. Okay, so here we go. No, we're not talking about the anan. No, this is koach hamaskel still. We're not talking anan. We're talking on certain elements. 1 second. Okay, fine. He completely understands it completely different than someone else. And he also cannot reveal that. Now here, the only way, this is the exception, this is Brodanim Rabbina, and the Reb Friedrich Rebbe actually elaborates. He actually adds, the Friedrich Rebbe adds, that with a strong effort, and this is a very important line, because you want to show that the unconscious could come into the conscious, but not quite in a revealed way. The only thing you can do, he says, with a lot of effort, it can come into some short words that carry the inyan. But it's not, you can't call this conscious seichel. That's the whole point there. It's in a different league. That's the bottom line. It's a different league. Or even to himself. 1 second.
The Chacham Be'etzem Chachmosai is the Sagan Alemus?
Yes. Sagan Alemus. No, that's unconscious. Sagan Alemus is unconscious. No. It's not Atzmi. We're not talking Atzmim here. Or else it wouldn't even be able to be revealed. Because remember, this Chacham has it. You can't say it's Chachma. Remember, he said the koach is Atzmi. You can't even call it Chachma. You can't call it wisdom. It originates from there. This is a wisdom. It's a real person that actually understands it. It's just a wisdom that doesn't come into a revealed way in the regular fashion. But for him, it's revealed. He sees it. He understands it. He can give you a little taste. The point is, we're talking here wisdom. You can't negate from it. It's called Beferish Chachma. It's not Amunah. It's not some miracle. Okay. Now, V'kolshkein, so you can't reveal it to anyone else. Now, here comes this thing, and the same thing is also Bishatev. In Midah is the same idea. A person who's fundamentally good in a different way, which is also the same thing. He's in a different league. Let's call it a different league. Bottom line is, by a person like this, Hasagan Alam, is his unconscious shines in him on a different level. Okay. Now, then he goes and says, Gam Yuvan Zekamaya Mev Medaite. This is a Mishnah in Chagiga. And the Mittler Rebbe actually elaborates more than Ayin Beis. That's why I was reading this. Of course, the Mishnah Chagiga says, En Dershen Ma'aseh Merkava Ela B'Yachid. And you have to give him Roshei Prokim. Ki hu chochem rak mishu chochem u'meiv medaite. It's a Mishnah Yiralef, Beis. I think Yiralef Amud Beis. Which means, when it comes to Primus HaTeirah, the Ma'aseh Bereishis you learn B'Shleisha, I think. It says there. But Yachid, you can only learn Yachid. Why? Because I guess the real reason, because it's intimacy, its level of understanding is not for everybody. So you learn it individually. But he clearly says there, you give someone Rashi Prokim, which means short, like, short, like we said, Rashi Prokim, a summary, basically. And because the Chacham Meiv Midaite, because he already will get it on his own. No, it's not something you communicate. So it's clearly a different level of communication. It's not like you sit down and learn Gemara. Okay, you don't know Gemara, we'll teach more. Here, he's already a Meiv Midaite. So he already has a different type of understanding. So you give him, so that's what he continues. All he needs is a remez. You just have to give him a little. It's basically explaining that, what is a Chacham Meiv Midaite. And this is an example to what he's saying earlier. Is it quite the same thing? I don't know. But it's definitely an example of a person of a different level of understanding that's not quantitative. It's not like, today you're not a Chacham Meiv Midaite, tomorrow you'll become one. No, either are you're not. That's clearly from the Mishnah. It's a certain type of maven, a certain type of asaga. And that's what Zeh Mitzad Etzem Keichach Moshe Yesh Lo Be'etzem Chush Tev B'Yesed. He has a different sense. And here again, you don't tell him much. In regular seichel, when you teach it, you tell a person everything you're teaching. How do you mean you don't tell him much? Because he has something. All you need to do is to get him going. You need to just direct him. Mukoshkein, definitely you don't give pratim. So you see from this a different quality of understanding. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I read it already. But bottom line, it's completely be'ifanacher. And oy meshum kved alekim hasti davar. He also brings that there. Or sometimes, because that's al derech one of the reasons. I think the Gemara may give this reason. Why takanat? Why don't you learn it all biyachid? Because it's the respect of God. You're talking about God's so-called inner secrets. It's like Kodesh Kodashim. You don't just go there. So in other words, it's a fundamentally different type of seichel that needs a different type of understanding.
You know the difference between the two?
Huh?
You know the difference between the two?
Between which two?
Two examples. Asagan Alemus and maybe Midaita.
Asagan Alemus is everything here. He says clearly, Meiv Midaita is Mitzat Etzem Keichach Masay. So it could be the same thing.
Yeah, it could be the same thing.
Yeah. From Ayin Beis it does not clear. I'm not saying it's two things. It's just another manifestation of the same idea. I don't know if it's two levels. I mean, I said that yet when we learned about the parentheses. We'll go to the parentheses in a moment. I don't necessarily think you have to say it's two levels. The only difference is, etzem koach chachmas, you're talking about the person himself. Here, it's clearly you're talking about he's already a chacham daat, and you're giving him something to get him going. That's what's missing when you say etzem koach chachmas. You're saying he just gets it. Here you're saying he doesn't have to give him Rashi Prakim. You do give him something. So for that reason, you could say he's maybe the student of a etzem koach chachmas, but he also has etzem koach chachmas. But you need to. That's the only distinction, that you already have to tell him something. But I don't know if that's really key emphasis. I don't know if you have to really go there. Fine. Anyway, the bottom line is, and also a person like this, he says, understands the kavanah, that when you read something, ostensibly you may think the intention is one way, and this person will read it, and will understand the intention is completely something different. He gets the kavanah amitis, the true intention of something, that others will actually draw a different conclusion from. Which is also interesting. Yeah. Exactly, between the lines type of thing. Yeah. That's what it is. Now he's going back to the end of previous chapter. That's Hamshachan Alamas. So Hasagan Alamas, this unconscious wisdom, is teaching us what does it mean, the unconscious transmission, the general. That's of koach. You can't call it seichel, because not conventional seichel as in the sex you could teach it, you could reveal it, and so on. But you can't also call it not seichel. It's not mushal. It's seichel. It's a different quality seichel. Nevertheless, it's still sichli. And here again he says, I mean, it looks like it's two different things, but it's... so the parentheses, I'll read it again and then we'll continue on. The be'emes zeu gili mikeach hamaskil. The zehu megili mikeach hamaskil from Imre Bina appears to me is the mevim medaite, but the truth is both of them. A koach hasagan alamas, a koach be'etzem koach hachmasei, or mevim medaite is coming from koach hamaskil. That's clear. It's coming from that power. Shezeh inyan koach hachmasei atzmi. That's that level, the unconscious wisdom we talked about, the core wisdom. And what Hasagan Alemes means, here it looks like there's making a distinction, but maybe not. We said both ways. I'll just read it again. Now in this context, it means the seichel itself is like the personality of the core intelligence. So Hasagan Alemes means there's already a comprehension, but it's like the core intelligence. That's why he can't explain it to others. He just gets it in a different way. The Mishnah, the person who understands, so you could basically say, let's be specific. What means meiv medaite? It means someone who gets it. There's a gili from the core that lahavin medaite, that he should understand it from his own understanding. From the words lahavin medaite, clearly it looks like there's a gili from somewhere that's making him understand it on his own. So you could simply touch it like we just said, like a line before, that this person has that channel open, a channel open to the core unconscious, so to speak, that allows him to be a meiv medaite. That's I would have to learn in Mebrin a little more to see if there's really another way to learn it. But let's. But emes gam haskol b'zeh be'efin kazeh k'mei b'antzad ha'etzem. The be'emes here needs a little. There's two be'emeses here in this parenthesis. The be'emes zel gili keich hamaskil. So clearly he's qualifying something. It looks to me the main qualification is that there's two steps in the process. There's the unconscious mind, and that's revealing itself into seichel of this individual. That's what it looks like. In other words, in that unconscious level itself, there's almost two levels. Besides, we're not talking about... his conscious is aligned with the unconscious, where the conscious mind of other people is not. That's what I think he's really saying in this parenthesis here. Because it's not that he remains unconscious. He does have the seichel. He has a comprehension. And we said earlier, he can even reveal it with effort, to a summary of it, or a taste of it. I'm thinking now maybe Rashi Prakim of the Mishnah is the Milim Ketzarim. Because you see, what does Rashi Prakim means is something is being said. Not that the only thing is some people won't get it, but something is being said. It's not, so maybe that's Rashi Prakim is Eisis Ketzarim. That's maybe Eisis Ketzarim. Maybe that's the word. that the short words that with exertion maybe means Rashi Prakim. Rashi Prakim means he could say something. It's not just you get it. That's why you learn it. You learn Ma'is. You do. If someone said, for example, you can't learn Ma'is Merkava, period. Either you get it or you don't get it. But you do learn it. But only with Amev Medaite, with Rashi Prakim. So it's mashma there that there's a level where some communication is going on, except it's on a different quality. It would be like elite students. Let's say certain people who a teacher will bring in, because those students have the etzem koach chachmasei. There is some transmission going on there, but it's on a different quality.
As a regular student won't get it.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's the point. But maybe that's why he says this, because that would explain the Rashi Prakim in the Mishnah. Maybe. So one second, let me go back then here. Maybe that's what he's really trying to say here. So it's coming from, that's also the transmission. There is a transmission going on. The koach hamaskil, the unconscious mind, is informing his conscious mind. And with Amev Medaite, it says again, maybe that's Hagili be'etzem koach maskel lahavin Medaite. Okay. Ube'im Rebina mavur, and this is the Rebina that I was citing before. Shezel mekoach hamaskil ma'madrega halyena, the higher level in the oil. That's always detached. In other words, the unconscious that's always removed. The unconscious. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, this is the point. Till now we were talking about the shemen as yayin. Remember, wine is unconscious. And shemen, there's a level of shemen that's connected, the unconscious that's connected. Then there's a level of shemen that's not connected. So he's lifting it up. So Rabbi is saying that this is koach hamaskil madregalin that remains fundamentally concealed. See, this is still okay. This throw me for a loop for a second. 1 second, let me think, because it's still not the koach atzmi. Koach atzmi is the real on. That's oil. I thought this was all wine that we're talking here. Yeah, because it's nelim, but it's seichel.
It's coming out of it.
No, all right. But then there's the oil, how it meets the wine. So there's basically the meets the unconscious, and that's the koach hamaskil madregal yenis. Okay, so what he explains there, and this is one more thing I want to add that really brings it together in a very geschmack way. When I was learning the Imre Bina, suddenly in one parenthesis he says, as we explain it in the Inyan of Baruch Sha'amar. So if you remember, go back to chapter Ayin. I want to show you a comparison that will blow you away. It's like unbelievable how it comes together. Chapter Ayin. Look at the end of the thing. Do you remember? I'll just refresh your memory. He said that there was Baruch Sha'amar, V'Amar Ha'elam, and then he says Baruch Hu. Remember? So he said Baruch Sha'amar V'Elam is the level of one Amira. God is saying. So he says, I'm reading the bottom of the page. They have no details, right? You'll see right away how it will remind you. Even though you have to say the desire. Even before he envisions everything afterwards, read the next line. And Baruch Hu reveals. Then he goes on, and then goes, and exactly the same words. And Rabbi connects the two. What he's speaking here, a person who's can reveal it to himself, is like that level of an unconscious level where it's not yet revealed. And when he begins to say it, even Rashi Prakim, like short words, that's already beginning revelation. And Baruch Hu is when it becomes revealed to himself. I'm just comparing, because he clearly compares it, which means, what is that? That's talking, if you remember, the 10 hidden spheres are both levels. The 10 hidden spheres is the way they transmit, and is the way they are on their own. Basically, that's the connection. Now, I want to say one more thing, which I think is just really relevant here. The Helam Sheinu Metzias and Yeshnu Metzias. If you remember, he spoke 2 chapters back, he spoke about the difference between a flintstone and a... No, Tzurch Lamesh is a flintstone.
And a coal.
A shalheves, shurabakacheles, and a coal. The difference is unconscious and unconscious. The unconscious, the wine, is just a concealed, and you have to just fan it. But if the heat is there, if you touch it, God forbid, it burns. A flintstone it's not only concealed, it's fundamentally concealed. There's no way you can reveal it. You strike it, it'll release a spark. So he calls that, the difference is, this is also Imre Bina. Helam sheyesh b'metzias, that's Hasagan Alemes. it's concealed. It's on a different level of intelligence, but it's seichel. By the person who has it, he has seichel, but it's concealed from everybody else. And then there's Helam She'einu b'Mitzias. That would be core faculties, etzem. That would be like the highest level of oil. That is that you can't even reveal it in any way. It's never revealed. That's what he says. Sosim.
Because I was just learning somewhere where they were talking about this concealment of fire in the stone and the coal, and I don't remember where I saw it, but it said there should be even a higher level, which is oil. Because oil is liquid, which is a lichiora stira to fire, because it's the opposite. Fire and water, it's a liquid. Yet in oil itself burns. So that was a third level. Maybe would there a connection here about oil is even a deeper level of concealment, but
than a Flintstone?
Than Flintstone.
I never heard that. I never saw that.
I saw that somewhere in a Sefirah Marma. You saw that. It's the actual deepest.
I would think it's lower than Flintstone.
It brought there because it's liquid, and liquid is fundamentally a steroid to fire. In that.
Okay, in Imre Binan here, I never saw that. And but the classic example of Chassidus is what is the Flintstone, is the Helam She'einu b'Mitzias. Remember that he spoke about was like Yechida, the faculties, core faculties, and then there's how it becomes a Mitzias. What he says in the last words here in this chapter is that this revelation of this individual has a different way of understanding. It comes from the higher level of the koach HaMaskil, which is completely fundamentally concealed. In other words, there's the koach HaMaskil that's he's lifting the whole chapter up to another level. Hasagan Alemus is really deeper. I'm sorry, Hasagan Alemus is one level is where he has it. It's coming from the unconscious, but it's revealed. It's like in the coal. Then there's a level where the unconscious has something of the unconscious. That's the point, and that is fundamentally concealed. It always remains concealed. So just I'll break down a little further here. Okay, fine. So let's continue on now.
How does this
the next chapter.
If I could ask a quick question. How does this all relate to the famous story that Baal told? I think he had a dream or an aliyah, and he said, if it would take me 80 years to...
Tarizal.
80 years to explain it to you. Is that this unconscious Chachma Etzman that you're talking about is seeing this vision? Is it relating to what we're talking about here?
First of all, in 80 years he would explain it, so it's already lower level than this. Here it says like no explanation will help. So there, I would compare that more to what we learned a few chapters back about numbers. That energy higher is more intense above. In quality, the number is higher, and lower it gets diminished. In Kalim, in details, when you go lower, you have more containers. That's how what we just brought is used in that context. That a person who's on a level of, that in a higher level of intensity needs a lot more words to explain it. So he has that experience from above. I wouldn't necessarily connect it to the unconscious thing. I mean, it's clearly, of course, it's a higher level. It's like any teacher. But there it is, a teacher and a student. It's just I wouldn't necessarily bring it in here. It makes more confusion than anything.
And what about the Alter Rebbe before he was released? He used to give Ketsarim, very short words.
Someone mentioned that here. That we discussed this earlier. That's more that I wouldn't connect it to this discussion here because it was used. This was used when we spoke about there. We spoke about when you summarize an inyan, summarize something. So there's a summary that comes after you know all the details. There's a summary that you know before all the details. Basically, that's the process of numbers, how that works. An idea that a teacher who's a master teacher who understands that concept, he understands it. He could, in his mind, in brief. And when he tells it, he has to the details breaks down a long time. But if it's a very beginner student, he has to break it also short. So there's two types of concising. There's two types of summaries. There's a summary that carries everything in it. There's a summary that diminishes it all. So that's where that would the context that I would say that. The Maimarim Ketsarim, some say you could say two ways. Whether the Maimarim Ketsarim had more power than the longer Maimarim, not necessarily. You could say the longer Maimarim have the power of the short Maimarim plus the length. It doesn't necessarily mean that then he had a higher revelation. It meant there was less kalim. In
the Maimarim Arukim there was more biur.
More explanation. You could say sometimes the Baal Shem Tov, the Magid, everything was short. So that's true. It's a concentrated idea in a higher level, like a Mishnah and Gemara. That's how you would explain it. The Mishnah, in short terms, contains in it far more details than what you see. That's how I would explain it. There's more energy there, less containers. That's what you would say. No, I wouldn't compare it to this. It's confusing. I mean, I don't see the two different worlds. The Imre Bina is not that. The Imre Bina is, first of all, the Imre Bina says clearly you can't explain it. It's not like Mishnah and Gemara. Mishnah and Gemara, the Gemara could explain the Mishnah. You're talking about the Tanoim had certain things they got, the Amoraim didn't get. That's a different story. That's not. Mishnah and Gemara or is a matter of concise and then break into details. Why do we have to bring that? There's a problem. You're just trying to connect things you've learned.
I'm trying to understand
No, I'm saying if there's something. No, I'm just saying in learning. If there's something missing here, let's look for the explanation. But to start connecting to everything you learned, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you got to be careful. Some things are connectable, some things are not so connectable.
This level of yediyas, the davar inyan, but osius kutsar inyan, that's not referring to what.
No, that's not at all referring to that.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
No, absolutely not. That's why I said I wouldn't bring that here. That's why I'm telling you.
Bring an example of what we're talking about in
when someone expresses the Gemara, the Mishnah says that when a person is learning Ma'aser Merkava, Kabbalah, deep secrets, you only learn it with certain individuals. You can't learn it with everybody. You learn it with an individual. That individual has a certain understanding of a different quality. So just say to him 2-3 words, and he gets it. That's it. It's not summarizing a big idea. He already has a different quality type of understanding. So all he needs is just to give him a word, and he gets it. The person gets it on a different level. That's the example. We don't have examples because you're talking about somebody a quality of understanding that's not conventional. You know, a Rebbe would speak to his son. He'd say 2-3 things to him. He gets something. That wouldn't work for anyone else. It's a different level of communication. You want to find examples? Yeah, 2 experts who are big professors, and they get something. They say 2 words. They get it. No one else is going to get it.
Like the parish of the Gra, how he always brings Rashi Tavis.
No. Why? What are you looking for?
A concrete example of it.
I just gave you a concrete example. That's the example he gives. I don't want to give other examples. Other examples are not going to work. Any type of summaries are not what he wants here. He wants not a summary. He wants something that can be conveyed. That's the point. It's exactly what he wants. He wants to have something you cannot convey. There's not something that can be trained, and it's not something that can be taught. That's exactly that. And I'm saying that's why those examples are not good, because those examples can be trained.
Like even the short writings of the Raga Shavar, it's not that.
You would say that Raga Shavar had etzem koach chachmaseh. Raga Shavar.
He wrote it very, very.
But writing short doesn't mean necessarily what he's saying here. Writing short, you can write something that's short, and someone else can come and write it out, and it's all fine.
But there's also certain
brevity is not always a sign of coming from this quality level. Brevity simply, we all do brief. Sometimes you write something, you write a summary.
But Raga Shavar also has certain depth to the short.
We're talking about everything Seichel has depth. We're talking about a different quality. If what the Raga Shavar wrote, nobody else could understand except 2-3 people, then it would be in that category. I wouldn't say that's the case. Raga Shavars could be understood. It's just short, and on your own, you need someone to elaborate. That would be like somebody wrote it out in brief. That's not what he's talking about here. Absolutely not. Because here he's looking for something here. Remember, machshava nelamis. He said clearly, etzem koach chachmaseh is something he cannot reveal. Doesn't even reveal. He can't see it himself. The fact that through a lot of effort he can give you a summary is only to a specific situation. Like he said, the Mishnah, a certain individual. Look, if you're asking a question, can we have access to this unconscious?
Yes.
That's a whole different question. That's not asking examples. That's your question. That I'd answer. Probably we can, but with certain type of avodah, it's going to take work. It won't come because, let's put it this way. There's some people that get it and some people don't get it. The it with a capital I. Can you teach someone who doesn't get it to get it? Let's start with that. Can we or not? The answer is, I think generally you can't, but there's some things you maybe can, but it's not going to come by teaching him how to get it. You teach him to get rid of certain things, certain misconceptions, and maybe he'll open himself up to it. It really is teaching someone bittul. That's really what you want to have. How do you get something that you don't get? Now, I know what I just said now. If someone doesn't get it, they won't even know what I'm talking about. Let's say, what it? Which it are you talking about? Which it? You know what I'm trying to say? That's the level he's talking about. So I think everybody has a sense, but like a cup coming to you can't, either you have it or you don't have it. I think you could teach it, but not in the conventional educational process. I think, for example, in school, in yeshiva, what happens is, the people who get it, who potentially can get it, usually get it on their own, not through their teachers. Because the teachers don't get it, in most cases. So what happens is, you go through school, and then you know, at some point you start, when you get a little older, you start saying, what's going on here? Something's missing here. Yeah. You know, but then there are good teachers, I think, that say certain things, that those that get it, see, there's a certain, like a Rashi program, some people just get something on a different level. But I don't think you can teach somebody. What you can do is ignite it in them. That's what he said, you have a class. There's no question there's going to be a few students in the class that have a different level of understanding that you can't train the others. 100%. Every class has that. Now, you're not talking about, it doesn't mean they're better, it just means they're blessed with that. So what you do is you say a few words that those get it. And the rest, they get what they get. Can you train the rest? I wouldn't make it a goal. I think, however, with Chassidus, you see, what we have is that we're not just, Yiddishkeit isn't just seichel. If it was just Aristotelian philosophy, either you get it or you don't get it. Here, we also have Aveda. And we have other qualities. A person with yediyas and makes an effort can reach places that a smart person who gets it doesn't reach because there's no effort. So I think yediyas is the key. In Samach Vav, this is the key thing. No, I'm answering your question, but here's the key. In Samach Vav, he says clearly. Now here he's talking the opposite. Here he's talking about not that it's a different quality. But you're asking me a question like that. In Samach Vav, when he speaks about Helam Mitzvah, he basically asks the question. It's in Vayitn L'cha. Tell this. Samach Vav. He asked the question, what happened here? The Jews built an egel. The Gemara says, had they not been breaking the luchas in the egel, they wouldn't have Teresh Shabal Peh, blah, 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 Medrash and all this. So Cheta Nisker. They sinned and they got more. They got reward for the sin. We got more Torah. It's not what he answers, by the way. No, he does not answer. She says, no, God forbid, not Chet and Niskir, is that when you do tshuva so you can reach a place that you can reach on your own. She says, he gives this example. He says, Seichel in general, the unconscious is not, the unconscious is usually inaccessible. How do you access it? A flintstone. That's the breaking of the luchas. You break the stone. You break. That's when Moshe hits the stone. Hitting the stone reveals something that, and what's an Aveda? Yediyas. You break the stone of your mind. That can only come if you... Basically two things, Kabbalah Sel and yediyas. That breaks the convention. In other words, interesting thing, to open up flows of consciousness to deeper levels, you do exactly the opposite of what everybody does, which is take LSD or something like that. Here you have to break the stone, it's either yediyas or Kabbalah Sel. Those two things open up new channels. It's fascinating. Because God, Kabbalah Sel brings you to God, and God is the one that created the unconscious. That's the way. So how do you teach someone to get it who doesn't get it? It's not through a training process. In other words, you're not going to be able to create a formula, a seichel dika formula. You're going to have to create basically bittul. And yediyas, an effort. Effort breaks down barriers. But that's totally, just for the record, Ayin Beis actually...
Effort, you mean effort physical?
Exertion.
Physical exertion.
Oh, learning. You know, when you're harav in learning, you break, like Talmud Bavli. That's what he says. Why Talmud Bavli is higher than Talmud Yerushalmi? Because the questions is the confusion. Machshakim, Heshivani, is the darkness that brings you to the light. But I want to just qualify one more thing. Ayin Beis and Samach Vav are two different tracks. Samach Vav, that's the main theme, the breaking, the Kabbalah Sel, to go out of yourself. Ayin Beis is very much focused on integration, bringing it in. You'll see everything is about integration, internalizing it. So right now,
once you broke yourself in Samach Vav.
Yeah, exactly right. No, for sure. It's not a stira. You hit the nail on the head. It's exactly right. That's why they come in that order. Someone asked me. I said, it's exactly right. You need both. Look, it's like, which is higher? In Samach Vav, the main thing is Ben Shenasa Eved. Someone who's close becomes a servant, meaning he has Kabbalah Sel, he sees himself as that God is beyond. Because someone close takes it for granted, so to speak. And I would say Ayin Beis is Eved Shenasa Ben. That you bring them back into closeness. Let's learn the next chapter.
Sometimes somebody that is not having the etzam koach of Mosai, and the Talmud is having it, the Talmud will get.
That's a good scenario. Absolutely.
What was that last point?
Yeah. That's for sure.
could be not having it, but the Talmud is hearing this getting a kind of understanding.
Yeah. But that's a very important thing. Like when people sat by Fabringen, I've been asked this question many times by interviewers, what people got from it. So someone heard a Vart, someone the Nigan, someone saw the Rebbe, said L'chaim. There were 1,000 things happening at once. 1,000 people tell you different experiences. It was all etzem. It was an MS for each person. You can't compare and say, okay, the one who understood the whole Fabringen got it more. No, he got that part. He got the understanding. Obviously, that was a part of it because the Rebbe was saying something. But most people didn't understand the Rebbe from beginning of Fabringen to end. It was impossible. I could speak for myself. I was a chayzer. I memorized and I wrote, but I didn't have to understand. No, I still don't understand at all. But to say the point was not to understand. The point was for us was really to listen and absorb, not so much understanding, but to absorb it and to be able to put it down on paper. It's another story. That's not comprehension. That's more I did the Torah Lemivla. That's absorption. But the point of the matter is that So that's the statement here. Let's go back to the theme. So the theme he wants to say is right now is that Atzilus is telling us a story of the unconscious divine. Not just of the conscious divine, the unconscious. And you're going to see it even to the unconscious, which we haven't got to yet. But to understand it, you have to understand it's called unconscious. Just because you have a revelation from unconscious doesn't make it conscious. It just means you're able to go there. So that's where he's going here. So the explanation is Hasagan Alamis. That's the term used. Koach hamaskil, koach mosmes. Okay. What time is it now? 10:15. They're supposed to pick me up now. Well, let's start. They'll come. Now it's known that the power of conceiving, we know only its existence, not its core personality, not its mehus. Example from Metzias mehus, it was a few chapters back, just to use it. There's different examples. The simplest is mehus means you saw it yourself. Metzias is you tell someone else about it. It's usually the simple way to explain it. Obviously, it's deeper than that, because what about you yourself? You can see something and you only see the Metzias and not the mehus. But the idea is, Metzias, you know of its existence. Mehus means mahu. What is it? So you can see something and not appreciate it. Example would be like the person who counts all the numbers, and he counts 1,000,000, so he appreciates the quality of what he has. And then he tells someone, I have 1,000,000, so they appreciate the quantity, more or less. They appreciate, the existence of it. They don't appreciate the full quality of it. She said, something, I just have to go back 1 second. There's the etzem hakeach. The only thing I'm missing in the last chapter is that the core faculty in the atzmi, it's not the koach hamaskil. It's higher. Okay, yeah. It's the in-between place, fine. The mehus, even though we don't know the mehus, chochma gluya, you know the mehus. Yeah, it's a revealed conscious idea, and you're chochma gluya, you know and you feel and you sense how and what is it? Parentheses. Even though the knowing, the awareness in seichel, even the revealed seichel, is also only the metzias. You only know of it. Because we don't really know the inner personality of the spiritual. Nevertheless, it's like the mehus of the metzias. So essentially, we still know. He's breaking it down into unbelievable fine detail. We still know the metzias mamish kameshahu. So it's not the mehus, but you know because you're understanding it. However, when you speak about koach hamaskil, we talk about the root of the source of seichel. There, we don't know what and when, or how and what. Nevertheless, it's still not. You sense that it exists. We sense that there's a source from where the seichel comes. So here's how it works. When you are understanding something right now, let's say you're thinking about Atzilus. You're conceiving. So mehus Atzilus really? No, you don't get. But you're talking about Atzilus, Eiris, Kalim. You're talking about something that has definition. When you talk about where did that seichel come from, where do ideas come from? There, we only know that it exists because we know that it had to come from somewhere. It's extrapolation. It's like a process. It's like saying, I see the water on my table, I know it had to come from somewhere. That type of thing. Whether you understand the water completely is another story, but at least you have something that you are relating to. Words, ideas. Because when a new concept arrives, when you arrive to a new concept, a new idea falls into your head, you sense it came from someplace. Not that here, suddenly, a new idea came. It didn't just come from nowhere. I'm saying it did come from nowhere. I mean, saying, in other words, it didn't come. It came from some source. So when you're like in the shower or wherever that your ideas fall into your head, so you feel like the idea came, like you say, "What? Where did that come from?" So you know it came from somewhere. You actually can sense it, but you have no clue what. Yeah, and this is still only unconscious, not unconscious. Just for the record.
This is only what?
The unconscious, not the unconscious. So this means hare. So this means shanu. We feel the source of seichel through the revealed seichel. In other words, the revealed entity reveals to you that there's a source that brings it here. Yeah, in a way. Yeah, I mean, that's in the broader sense of the word. Yeah. And also we know, we also inevitably also know, the Ili HaMokir, not just that it comes from it, that the Mokir is superior, above Al Hagoli. The Ili, its virtue, its quality over the revealed. Like every archetype, which has this quality, Al Hagili, Shemim Menu, and the revelation that comes from it. Canal. In other words, every archetype has this a virtue over that which is revealed from it, because nevertheless, at the end of the day, it's not fully negated. It's not beyond completely of what's revealed from it. In other words, there's a relationship between them. And also, there's also giluyim. There's also revelations that come from the source of seichel, like the Hasag and Alemas that we spoke about, that there is some hidden, there are people who get it, who do have this hidden comprehension, and they understand things on their own from the Mishnah. Hanal. All this comes to us through conscious wisdom. Because like it says, you give wisdom to the wise. That's only to the wise, specifically to the wise you give the wise who have a revealed conscious intelligence, you give them the unconscious intelligence, the core intelligence. So it's an interesting taich. So in other words, you have it, so it's chokhmah gluya, yeah. No, but it's chokhmah. At the end of the day, even the source of seichel is still chokhmah, and it comes through chokhmah. However, it is beyond. So it's both beyond, and you can recognize that it's there. That's the key. It's not based on faith, and it's not based on
oil hits the wine.
Yeah, that's the highest level. This is really wine itself. This is wine. The oil hits the wine, I think, is one step above this. That's what I would say.
At the top of the oil, though.
This is where the wine hits the bread.
The wine hits the bread?
Yeah. So what is it?
Yeah, because that's seichel goli.
What do you get when the oil hits the wine?
Well, don't worry, we're going. Hey,
Don't put it right.
I see why you
Stay by the wine.
I see why you like LSD, because it's you went for the express train, huh?
Steve Jobs.
We're taking the local now. We're getting there soon. וגם יכולים לי אז גילויים גם בכוח השכל היו לי העצמי בכוח ער חסד. Now we're going to what I mentioned. I didn't realize he actually says it. So now, what he said now is revelation. He said two things here. First of all, for all of us, even someone who's a regular chacham. We're not talking about not chacham. That's another story. Regular chachamim, ideas come from somewhere. There's unconscious. For a person who has etzem koach maseh, his conscious is informed by that unconscious. So there's a revelation of seichel. Now he's saying that there's also another. You could also reach it. Gam yichem liz giluyim. You could also have giluyim from there. Gam b'koach haseichel yulia atzmi b'koach er chezer. You could have revelations from this koach haseichel atzmi. We're talking now this core. Sogan dilemmas. No. No, he doesn't. Yulia atzmi. I know it's mashma, but he can't be something talking.
I think you mentioned before that comes.
He said that Talmud Machkem is Rabbi. Right? Where was that? Yeah, Talmud Machkem is Rabbi. So let's see. Remember where that was? Talmud Machkem is Rabbi? I remember, yeah. I think it was the middle of Tzadik Vav.
Yeah, right here.
Where? Kuf Pei Vav?
Yeah. The lines from the conceive.
What's the beginning of the line as well?
So,
Oh yeah. Let me see a second. One second. The koach zaglim mamash ein be'erech liyas nimtzeh ma'koach asma. Yeah. Okay, let's read it because I'm not sure. Because right now he was till now definitely speaking. Maybe you're right. Because
it was express train that he said.
No. Because I was thinking. Okay, that would be oil. Then there could also be revelations. Let's just see from the because he just says atzmi with the power of we call it
Ricochet.
we said it there's reflected light and there's not reflective light, there's retractive light, refractive, huh? Chezer is reflected or refracted? What is refracted?
It's broken up. It's different.
Okay, so it's a reflected light. Okay. Basically the returning energy, right? It bounces back. What is that? That he didn't bring before. Like that from my students I get wisest. Like a student that sharpens the mind of his teacher. That he did bring before on page 186. Let's see what he's going to say. All this is through the Seichel Hagali. Okay, so 1 second. What threw me here is suddenly he's jumping back there. That's why it wasn't the flow. No, it's apparent that it's
Before it's called that's like
No, but this is definitely seems very similar to what he said there. But there's 1 second. What's bothering me is that here he's making it how difficult it is. It's some koach mas, it's just koach hamaskel. Mitamal, you have giluyim from even higher.
So the natural flow of things like yediyas, it's impossible to access.
No, I understand the Havan of it. I'm just wondering whether. 1 second, I just want to think something through here. So which means, let's put it this way. Let's go a step further. Can Talmidei Yesem Mekulim reach at some koach maseh? Forget about that. That's even a lower level. Seemingly, yeah. If you can reach,
not to the Talmud.
Okay. So the teacher gets it. Okay. What time is it now?
Hello. 10:27.
I'm gonna have to stop here. Let's stop here because they're coming to pick me up. Yeah, if you don't mind, we'll stop. Let me just say this: we did at the beginning of chapter 98, page 188.